Steeler Fury. SteelerFury.com.
So I'm highlighting my Pittsburgh versus Aldian shirt. Hey, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers show on your SteelerFury.com podcast. I'm your host, Brad Shutterman, also known as Wil Masisak. You might know me as Accidental Zen on Twitter. And with me, as always, the two best cohorts money can't buy. I've been not buying them for a really long time now. From Pittsburgh Suburban Zone 22, his name is SteelPerch. He's a Penn State fan. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I'd like to call to order the first official weekly John Leglue fan club meeting.
Yes, indeed. And with us, our own John Leglue, the fifth string guard who's still hanging on to a starting role. His name is Dom, goes by FC. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I am great, and I am definitely going to be speaking a lot about Frenchie. So.
Frenchie Leglue. Pepe.
How awesome was he? Unbelievable.
I was going to say between him and the nose tackle.
Adams.
Yeah, signed 2 days earlier. What a breath of fresh air to add. You have your lines get dominated one week, and then you add two basically practice squad guys, and voila. Speaking of Frenchie, I'll start with you, FC. Tell me a little bit about what you saw coming with Joe. I mean, he was in camp, right, and didn't really show that much. It seemed like for John.
No, he was in camp, but he looked at the numbers game, and he didn't think he would be able. We wanted him for our practice squad, and he came in here with our assistant offensive line coach from Atlanta. He looked at the numbers, and he thought he had better opportunities in Green Bay, where they had a ton of injuries. You know, Bakhtiari went down. They lost Corey Lindsley. But when we had the opportunity to sign him back, we signed him back. And he was good this preseason. Not great, but he was good. And he was a gamer at Tulane. And he's a left tackle. He's left-handed. And he's a smart kid. And he really played well yesterday. Did Calais Campbell play? This is the only question I can ask you. And that's saying a lot.
Yeah. I mean, that's a pretty good guy he played against. Campbell had one hit on Ben. That's about all I'll say for his game. Otherwise, I didn't notice him at all. And Perch, what about Montravius Adams? Did you happen to get an eyeball at his play? Because I thought that was a huge factor in the game.
I actually like Montravius Adams back at Auburn. I think I even had him like a mid-round nose tackle in a Steelers mock back in the day. So yeah, that was a name I knew. Leglue is, probably the second best Louisiana name in the NFL since T-Bob Hebert back in the day, if you remember him, the interior lineman. Anytime you get a T-Bob, they're from Louisiana, right?
T-Bob.
Or a T-Mike. You're a T anything, right? Anything but a T-bone. That's George from New York. Anyway, Montravius played pretty. I mean, you're going from having either Cam Hayward play out of position at nose, or any of the other backup defensive end caliber guys that are moving to nose, to an actual nose tackle. And he was competent. Like, I'm not going to say he had a great game, but he did his job. He was effective, and he did what he needed to do in that position to allow the other guys to kind of flourish. So yeah, very good game for him. I think, he's a guy who, when you look at the other, Carlos Davis and those guys that are on the roster, he might be better than all those guys. Really, is just a pure nose tackle prospect. Now, I don't know if he's somebody I want starting a long time, but for a backup, I think that he's probably better than everybody we have after Alulu.
Yeah, I guess Dom, is it a indictment of drafting that we drafted guys ahead of these two guys, and we have to keep guys on the roster ahead of them, or is it a plus for your pro personnel scouting, or in other words, who gets the credit for bringing in guys that can play better than the guys that you've had that you drafted or brought in as free agents? How do they get it wrong before and get it right now?
I think the way they got it right with with Adams is they realized that they had a major hole, and it was a major need. And somehow, some way, thank God New England's defensive line depth is what it is. Because I think Adams could probably play, honestly, for 20 to 22 teams in the NFL. Maybe not start, but make their 53-man roster. And his skill set just fits what we need for defense so well. He's a big body, but he also, for people that say he has attitude problems, his attitude problems are being overly aggressive and caring too much, and being too passionate about the game. At Auburn, he got into some trouble, like for wanting to fight teammates that didn't give effort, fight offensive linemen that held him. And the Steelers needed a spark. The thing that stood out about me is he chased every play. He chased down a bubble screen to I believe it was to Andrews, which made it a 3rd and 2, which I was just shocked at. I was like, yeah. And that shit's contagious. And I feel that the Steelers had spirit, went beyond the crowd. The crowd was fantastic yesterday. It was just the Steelers played for one another. And they're going to, they'll win games if they play that way.
Yeah, it's funny, Perch. It's like, you think about how bad they looked on defense, especially the previous 3 games. First of all, I guess a healthy TJ Watt is the difference maker between being terrible and being pretty damn good. What was your take on defensively? What made the difference in this game? Was it just attitude, just adding a couple of guys?
Lamar Jackson. I mean, the Steelers own Lamar Jackson. We talked about that last week, and the Ravens' offense has really been sputtering. I think the Steelers kind of showed the league how to bust that offense up, and it's been struggling ever since, really, the last, most of this year and a good part of the back half of last year. They're kind of predictable. Once you can rein in that run game, I mean, their passing game is not going to leave a lot to be desired, especially on, passing down. So, part of it was the Steelers, part of it was that the Steelers didn't get gashed in that run game. I think that Montravis Adams being there and having an actual nose tackle, obviously having Cam Hayward back at his real spot and having TJ Watt back and healthy, did a lot of good. I thought Devin Bush looked less incompetent. Unfortunately, he tagged the incompetence to the guy to the left of him. But,
yeah.
We can't seem to have a week with good linebacker play. Just, the back end held up pretty well. I thought going to Witherspoon, we've been getting beat a lot in the back end since Joe Hayden's been out. And we've all been wondering where's Witherspoon, and obviously he didn't kind of assumed he didn't look that great in practice because he wasn't getting had a lot of weeks. And he had a nice pass breakup yesterday, and I thought played pretty well. But yeah, Joe Schobert though was just he looked 2 steps slow and missed tackles. The defense still misses too many tackles, but I think the biggest reason they looked so good, 1, they were healthier. 2, they were fired up to play a home game against the Ravens because they're always up for that game. And 3, I think they just have a good beat on how to defend Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, and I would also say that, first of all, Schobert looked like he's injured. I don't know that he is or isn't, but that's what he looked like. Like it's the end of the season and I'm worn down and beat up and I can't run. Because that was really, unusual even for him. He still had a bunch of tackles, but it's like you could just tell that guy is not moving the way that he did 2 or 3 years ago. That's for sure. The thing about Witherspoon, the other thing of note, FC, I think he might have had the biggest hit on Lamar. Lamar Jackson, I think, is a pretty notoriously tough to hit guy. And especially when you're alone on the edge trying to be the forced defender, he's just make people look silly. Like I'm not going to hold missed tackles against anybody out in the open field against Lamar Jackson. The ones against the running backs and tight ends and things, that's different. But did you notice the hit that Witherspoon had on Lamar Jackson and how differently he played that? He kind of attacked Lamar instead of passively waiting for him. I thought that was interesting.
I think it's the way that you have to play him. And Witherspoon is a long, lanky guy that's, probably more used to being a perimeter defender in the last line of defense. So at the very least, he would drag people down. It was a great hit. I agree with Perch. Witherspoon must have looked terrible in practice. I don't think it's a tough time picking up the defense because he's an extremely intelligent young man. Maybe it was just the Steelers have some unique concepts, and boy, they showed a few yesterday still. But I just think that I don't want to say Witherspoon got lucky, but he showed proper form and he did the right thing. Mm-hmm. The number 35, the other Frenchie on our team, small corner,
Arthur Millette.
Yeah, he had a pretty nasty hit on him as well. I think that Lamar Jackson is getting a little bit more frisky and willing to take on defensive backs a little bit more than he has in the past. And I think that he might get his comeuppance sooner or later.
Yeah. I thought that for Cordell Stewart for years, that eventually he was going to take a massive hit. And maybe it wasn't until like his last year or so in the league where he couldn't move the same way.
Odd, though. Cordell Stewart may put a hit on you. Lamar Jackson's $190.
Yeah. Yep, true. Hey, Perch, just before we're going to talk offense, but let me ask you sort of a defensive question. Are we going to praise the defense for what it did in the first 58 minutes of this game, or are we going to knock them for what probably could have and possibly should have been a game-losing drive to the Ravens at the end? What was your takeaway of the defense? Glass half empty or half full about that last drive?
Oh, we're going to do both for sure. We've talked about this a number of weeks. Every time the defense has had a chance to put a game away at the end of the game, they've continuously let teams back in, just march right down the field in a couple of plays. And, it happened again. So, yeah. Fortunately they squeaked out the win. They've won more of these close games. They've got 5 comeback wins in the fourth quarter. And then, the one at the Chargers, they let that one slip away, but so they're probably 5-1 in these games. But of those 6 games, the defense probably failed 5 times, and the offense had to get an extra score to win it. And I think it's symptomatic of the league as a whole, because every game I watch, it's like that. Whoever gets the ball last is scoring, and defenses just aren't able to hold it down when it needs to. But yeah, I kind of want to go back, and that's something I intend to do this week, is go back and kind of look at each of those drives and try and see if there's some commonality to it.
I don't know. I watched, rewatched a little bit just for some things that I was looking for. One was there was the play on the first drive where the first drive that Baltimore scored, where the tight end was basically running free down the seam and caught a wide open ball down, for first and goal. And I looked at the replay. The Steelers are playing quarters in the back and have a man on Andrews coming up the seam. So you have a hook curl defender who's carrying him, to a certain distance, and then you have a quarters behind him with a safety, and still they managed to let the guy run wide open down a quarter of the field. And it just sort of so that looked like kind of a missed assignment. Arthur Millette, speaking of, on the touchdown pass at the end of the game, looked like he blew his assignment. So I think maybe some of it's assignments, FC, but I'm a little concerned about the guy calling the plays. And I'll take you to the 2-point conversion. You coming out of a timeout, you call a timeout so that you can get your defense set. And you then they don't seem to be prepared for what is probably the most commonly called play in that situation, that tight end out of the, coming across the formation behind, sort of sneaking out to the sideline and giving your quarterback either a throw to him or run the ball. And they seemed woefully unprepared for that. Devin Bush his feet were in concrete and he didn't move when Andrews came across. And then the safety Edmonds was planted 3 yards deep in the end zone instead of attacking forward, giving him no leverage, to be able to stop that play. Thank God for TJ Watt. Do you think the play calling or the execution are bigger issues for this, the situational football for the defense?
2 examples that you gave. The one I'm 100% certain of. what the answer is, and that would be the 2-point conversion play, because I was lucky enough to listen to Brian McFadden and Mike Taylor break it down on a podcast this morning. And if anybody watched Monday Night Football last night, Tony Dungy was 100% wrong. The Steelers were in what they call their prowler defense. And what is supposed to happen is Mark Andrews, as he motions out, Devin Bush picks him up, and he has him in the flat. Terrell Edmonds is supposed to attack the goal line. So if he goes to the corner, Edmonds has, you're basically have the tight end double covered instead of not covered at all. So that was a blown assignment by Devin Bush, didn't get to the flat, and Terrell Edmonds didn't press the line of scrimmage. On the Mark Andrews play that you said, I believe you're 100% right. I believe that the player that was carrying the hook curl, and I want to say it was Joe Schobert. I could be incorrect.
I believe it was Schobert, and it was Edmonds in the quarter.
Joe Schobert has to reroute him. And by rerouting him, it doesn't necessarily make physical contact. He has to get him off that route with foot movement. And if he ain't fast enough to do it, then it's a defensive call issue. It's the same thing that you had at the end. You had the Steelers so afraid to go to man coverage because to turn their backs on Lamar Jackson, even with 47 seconds left in the game. So you had some combination coverages, which the Steelers have failed at. They failed miserably all season at. And I believe, once again, that might be too many cooks in the kitchen, where I don't think that Keith Butler would have called that defense if he had the option. I think he would call it the prowler. I don't think that the last 55, 60 seconds was too much of Keith Butler defense. I think it was more of Mike Tomlin coming in there and stirring the pot and adding in the things that he likes, that he takes responsibility for, because those are more common. Tampa, too, looks more common what he did with the Minnesota Vikings, which we don't have the personnel to do because, well, Terrell Edmonds is Terrell Edmonds, and our inside linebackers are not very good in pass coverage.
Yeah, well, that sums it up. Perch. I mean, the too many cooks in the kitchen routine with the defense, that does sort of seem to add, I think when they play against Cincinnati without emotion, then you're glad you have a guy like Mike Tomlin that seems to figure out a way to press the buttons to get the emotion going, following a loss like that. But, eventually this is going to bite them, is it not?
Well, it already has. I mean, they've given up 41 points back-to-back weeks. They've failed trying to stop a team to hold out a lead a handful of times this year. I don't know what the minutia of the two guys calling the plays are. I know that Tomlin takes it over whenever he wants. I know that he's got his stamp on the design, and Butler is somewhat of a potted plant. We all kind of know that. I mean, the guy was never a defensive coordinator. I think he was a defensive coordinator for 1 year of his entire life in college, and that was it. And the rest of the time, he's just been a linebackers coach. So how do you go from that on your resume to, hey, you're a defensive coordinator when you've never really called the defensive calls? And you've got Tomlin, who has as your head coach. I think obviously Tomlin is pushing his weight around, and it's more of his defense than anything else. But my big takeaway from the past month, and I would not have said this at all a month ago, I think the number one drafting in this team is inside linebacker. As much as I think they need to rebuild the offense, Schobert's only going to continue to get slower. I don't know if it's injury, if it's age, it's probably a combination of both. And I don't have a great deal of faith that Devin Bush is ever going to fully recover from that injury, because I think a lot of what is ailing him is mental. I just don't think he's aggressive or physical enough. So you can't have two of them. You can have one mediocre inside linebacker, maybe get away with it and rotate them out, but you can't have two. So I'd hate to see him spend another pick on the linebacker, but they might have to.
Yeah, and I think it's a tone setter. You need a culture changer at linebacker and inside linebacker, and they clearly neither one of those guys fits that mold. They might be a complementary piece to somebody else, maybe, even though that's a stretch. But yeah, that complementary.
Well, unfortunately, but I think Devin Bush is a tone setter right now, and that's the problem.
Fair enough. FC, let's talk about the offensive side for a second. Let's start with the negatives first. First, play calling. How do you let your quarterback who, okay, so against the Chargers, basically let them up late in the game. Against Cincinnati, had no really room to operate, but didn't play very well. But how do you let him throw 3 passes in the first 28 minutes of the first half? Like, how do you go 2 drives and you barely throw the football?
I do not know.
Yeah.
I mean, I have. Canada at times will design some nice plays. There's things that you see that give you hope, but there is absolutely no rhyme or reason to our offensive strategy at all. When we have success, it seems to be no huddle, and I think that the team, the offensive unit as a whole, is more confident and more comfortable. At what point do you have nothing to lose? This is Ben's last year by just saying, give them 2 plays. 1 run, 1 pass. If the run looks like an absolute stinker, kill it and go to the pass. I mean, could Ben been sharper yesterday? Probably not. I believe in the fourth quarter he was 14 of 16, right around 180 yards, 2 touchdowns. The other drive was a field goal and could have easily been a touchdown if you let him, be creative and throw the ball other than a couple bubble screens. I think that Perch really hit on something with Keith Butler only being a defense coordinator 1 year at the University of Memphis. Well, people forget Mike Kohlman was only a coordinator for 1 year at Minnesota. He was the defensive backs coach. Monty Kiffin was the defense coordinator there. He left Tampa, become defense coordinator in Minnesota. Was there for 1 year and was head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, our coaching staff's a problem. There's no getting around that. I mean, I think we've been preaching about it for a while, and the creativity on both sides of the ball is lacking. We were stale, we're pungent. The things that are working now for us are the same things that Ben was doing under Haley and Arians. It's a mismatch of concepts that seem to be successful. Those are the things that Ben likes. So if he's going to be the driver of this offense, the offense got to be something that he likes. Now, that doesn't mean 60 or 70 throws a game. You got to get Najee Harris involved. But right now, you're just going to make Najee Harris, a 1 contract back, and he's going to be out of the NFL. 500 fucking touches is 500 touches, but I'd say 200 of them are just boneheaded touches.
Yeah, like just take this ball and run to the stack right here. Take a couple of hits. Yeah, that doesn't really make too much sense. Perch, the other thing was, we're now in year 2 with Chase Claypool, and if I'm not mistaken, is it year 3 with James Washington, or is it 4 now? 4, I think, right?
4 in Washington.
I just don't like, how do guys not know how to be prepared for hot routes, for how to approach a deep ball, to run through it, to make a play on it. Like maybe James Washington just doesn't have the talent to do that kind of thing, but I wish somebody could explain Chase Claypool to me. He's pushing off a guy when all he has to, he's already open and behind him. All he has to do is just run to the football. Instead, he tries to make this complicated play out of it. Washington did something similar. The officials maybe took a catch away from Ray, but Ben dropped 4 deep ball dimes and got nothing to show for it. And they one pass that was taken away and like 3 that were just misplayed by wide receivers. That just feels like 4, at least 3 too many of those. Is it just that we've now lost Daryl Drake and our wide receiver coaching is not what it could be? It's still Ike Hilliard, is it not?
Yeah, I believe yeah. I think that there's one very common thread, even though they're different style players and different, body types between Washington and Claypool, is they lack with Deontay Johnson and Antonio Brown and Santonio Holmes. And the thing that the Steelers hit on with receivers so much was that change of direction, separation ability, where Washington, was supposed to be a deep threat, but he's not particularly fast, and he's kind of built like a running back, and he's kind of strong, but he just doesn't really fit the mold of any type of receiver. Claypool is big, and he's got some strength, and he's got some straight line speed and some leaping ability, but he's not really doesn't get a lot of separation on his routes, and if somebody's on him, he wants to hand fight. So he's been called for offensive pass interference, I think, a couple times this year.
Yep.
So you can use a guy like that, in the red zone, and you throw it up to him and that sort of thing, and throw him the jump ball, the ball down the sideline. You put it up high and hope he goes in high points. It just hasn't happened quite enough for him. I think the Steelers really make hay in their wide receiver selections when they get that guy and they identify that guy, and so the guy that Ben has made his career on, of having that shiftiness and that, that quick cut, like that little in and out route that Deontay did for that touchdown, where he cuts in, stops his feet, and immediately cuts back out. If you've ever guarded anybody in a sport, I know you play defensive back, or even playing basketball, somebody who's so quick and they can change directions, it's impossible to cover. I don't care how big I don't care if they're small, if they're not strong. Like Deontay, I don't think is very big or very strong. But if you can stop your feet and go back the other way really quickly, you're going to get open in any sport you play. And those are the kind of guys they've had more success with. So, they're going to need to kind of fill. I don't think they'll probably bring Juju back. And he's another one. He's another guy who's physical and a pretty good slot receiver. They don't have a real beep speed guy like a Mike Wallace that can really take the top off, and they've only got one guy who's really shifty and runs great routes and creates space and separation. So that's part of the offensive problem. I think with those two particular guys, with Washington and Claypool, but the issue I really wanted to hit on was kind of what you started to talk about there. Holy cow, is the offense just so brutally conservative to start the games. I mean, they did the first 6 plays were 4 runs, literally up the middle, a designed 2-yard pass, and then a pass short of the 6 on third down. That was the entire first half of the game. You can't win that way. So I pulled up the stats a little bit earlier today. In the first quarter this year, the Steelers averaged 2.8 points per quarter, which is 24th in the league. Second quarter, 5.3, which is 26th. Third quarter, 2.6, which is 29th. And in the fourth quarter, they explode for 9.3 points, which is 4th in the league. So you tell me what's different watching the games. Well, hey, the fourth quarter, all of a sudden we throw the ball down the field. We attack the middle a little bit more.
It's a miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle, the fourth quarter of every game, but they're too afraid to open it up like that and attack a team until they're down. It's like they're, some kind of weird courtesy we don't know about that. Hey, we're not going to, we're sparring, and I'm not going to punch you in the face, I promise. Until you get hit in the face yourself 6 times and you decide, okay, well, I'm going to punch you back in the face. It's so maddening that you think that, hey, let's go play the Detroit Lions and let's just blow them out and put them away early so they don't think they have a chance against us. We don't do it, and it's over, and it's been for years, and we're all frustrated, and we talk about it every week. But I literally pulled the stats this time, and we suddenly are somehow a top 5 offense in the NFL in the last quarter of the game. I wonder why.
Yeah, that's brutal. It's so true. I don't know. FC, I have this theory. It's sort of a slight tangent, but my theory is that the Steelers' biggest problem especially in the first 3 quarters of the game, is that if you think about all the plays they call in their third down package, if they called those on second down, it feels like they would have a lot more success with it. That catch and run and see if a guy can get some yards after the catch. A deep ball on the sidelines. Like, why are these not the second down plays, and then make your third down plays situational football beyond the sticks? Because it feels like you'd avoid third down a lot if you just called that package of third down plays on second down. We've gone around on this, but as far as the conservativeness of this offense, but it feels like they're just checking boxes. Like, we have to run this many times or we'll lose. You want to offer something on that? Keep me from talking.
I know what we made fun of Ken Wisenhunt a little bit last week, and the one thing he was good for was a little trickeration shenanigans that would make the defense prepare. And whenever defenses have to think, they get slower. Our predictability on offense allows defenses to play fast, and a defense that can play fast generally succeeds, even in the NFL. So I think that we have to slow down defenses. And the best way that you slow down defenses is, variety in your play calling. Every week, Ben should, Canada and Ben should meet, and Ben should look at the film for the team coming up, maybe on Tuesdays during a normal week, and Ben should give Canada 20 pass plays he absolutely loves. We did this in 2009, and he basically breaks it down to him, and Canada puts it into the playbook. Even if, I know you're going to say, well, the Steelers don't have receivers here from 2009. Tell Claypool, run a 9-route, Deontay Johnson, run a post corner, Fairman, run a clear out underneath, and Najee Harris swing out of the backfield. Ben has to be comfortable with the play calling, and I would love to see some trickery or shenanigans, creativity to this offense, because I think that the entire team will feed off of it. The defense can't go out there thinking, we can't allow teams to get to 17 points. If they get to 17, we might be in trouble.
Yeah.
You can't have success that way.
Yeah, to use your hockey fan, Dom, the Penguins, Mike Sullivan, we like to be a team that is difficult to play against, to be hard to play. I think that is
another Mike Sullivan quote is safe is death.
Yep, safe is definitely death. Welcome to a Dick LeBeau defense without Troy Polamalu. Safe is definitely death. Perch, just a follow up on what you said a minute ago about the lack of receivers that get separation. Do you think maybe somebody in the recesses of the Steelers brain trust looks at these two guys that they just brought in off of nowhere that upgraded these positions and thinks to themselves, well, why don't we give Steven Sims or Anthony Miller or both a hat and give them some touches in the passing game and give them some looks? Because, it's not really sure what James Washington is offering you that those two guys can't. And maybe you catch a little lightning in a bottle and be able to do something with it.
Yeah, I mean, even Ray McLeod, with the limited opportunities he's got since Juju went out, has made some nice plays, including the catch that he had yesterday. And I can't even believe that Harbaugh challenged that, let alone it was overturned. To me, it's still a clear and obvious catch. He caught it. He had it controlled it. He had his hand under it. When he went to the ground, the tip of the ball touched the ground, but it was still controlled in his hand. It was just stupid. But that's a side rant. But yeah, I agree. I mean, those two guys both have some more speed and elusiveness, and yeah, I think that they're just kind of loyal or beholden to James Washington and any extra reps and opportunities they're throwing his way. And unless there's an injury, those other guys probably are not going to get a chance.
Yeah, which is wild to me. I don't even think Anthony Miller dressed yesterday or Sims. I think they had Cody White on special teams, and it's like, okay, that's the way we're playing. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup with Minnesota. It's such a quick turnaround. Pretty much assuming that there's not going to be a whole lot of changes made before this game. Minnesota did something that even the Steelers couldn't manage to do a couple of weeks ago. And that is they lost to the Detroit Lions yesterday. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the game. I happened to watch Red Zone channel that featured a lot of it. And their defense got, they made Jared Goff look like Brett Favre towards the end of the game there. And now it looks like Adam Thielen maybe going to miss this game for their offense. Perch, what do you think about this matchup on a short week? Usually it's bad news for the team traveling.
Yeah, the Vikings defense was not great all year, but Eric Hendricks has been out, Anthony Barr's out, Peterson was on COVID last week, so he may or may not be back, and Daniel Hunter's been on IR, so they've got a lot of key pieces of that defense out. Their left tackle, Darashaw's out, Dalvin Cook is out, and then now Phelan is getting an MRI today, so he's questionable for this week. So they've got a lot of pieces out. Their offense has been pretty explosive all year. They've got a good passing game. They come out with 3 wides and a tight and throw the ball over the field, but you're taking away their most explosive running back and playmaker, and then maybe not their first best, but their second best receivers out. It's setting up for the Steelers, and I think that Kirk Cousins can be fooled into some mistakes when you get some pressure on him. He's proven that over time. So the Vikings certainly aren't world beaters, and we know how good Ben is, one of the greatest dome quarterbacks in the history of the world. You can look that up. It's a fact. Ben indoors in the dome, maybe he'll have a good game.
Yeah, Ben indoor in the dome, just go back no further than the Chargers game earlier this year. It must be like he and Aaron Rodgers are like, oh my God, it's so beautiful to play in this perfect conditions like we never get to experience normally. At least Aaron Rodgers has 2 domes in his division. Ben doesn't even get that luxury. FC, how do you see the Steelers' plan of attack on offense? Are they just going to try to build off what they were doing, or do you think they'll revert back to how they started this game with the Ravens and play it close to the vest?
They're going to play close to the vest. Let's just be honest. The Vikings are...
You're crushing my dreams, FC.
Just honest. The Vikings are really beat up. Perch hit on a lot. Hunter, Griffin. On the offensive side, ball, Dershaw. Hendricks is out, it looks like. I think the Steelers could actually, I don't want to say blow the doors off the Vikings, but I think the Steelers could definitely score some points if they decided to make the offense more Ben-centric. I definitely agree with both of you where I think Anthony Miller has now earned an opportunity over James Washington. I think the loyalty to James Washington has grown stale at this point. I think the big thing is going to be the offensive line. With Frenchie in there, I kept on waiting for the other shoe to drop. It never did, and we were moving the line of scrimmage. Brandon Williams, their nose tackle, had 10 solo tackles. Of those 10 solo tackles, 7 of them came 3 yards or further from the line of scrimmage. Well, if your nose tackle is making plays 3-4 yards down the field, that tells me the interior of my offensive line is doing a pretty good job. So that's something that's going to have to continue. And the Steelers are going to have to choke off Madison and the Vikings run game. They're good at running the football. And shockingly, there's metrics in the NFL that Kirk Cousins is top 3 in. QBR, I think, is 1. Touchdown interception ratio. So, George Jefferson's a great receiver. No Thielen's going to be huge for them. So the Steelers are just going to have to play smart football, not turn it over, and they're going to have to be aggressive on both sides of the ball.
No, the fact that Kirk Cousins in QBR and the Pro Football Focus ratings is a top 5 quarterback perennially, and the Ben is a bottom 5 quarterback perennially, tells you everything you need to know about the efficacy of those statistics, analytics. I'm all for analytics, but they got to be correlated to actually winning football games. Perch, I'm going to give you this as a way of simultaneously acknowledging that FC was right about something, and that you, the Penn State fan, will have to eat crow. And that is, I felt that Kendrick Green kind of dominated Jason Owa. I forget what is his name change.
But it was once again that Kendrick Green had a nose tackle. He didn't have someone cocked to an angle of him. He's going to be good against nose tackles 3-4. He's going to start with the 4-3. Yeah,
I got you, because it's not the wide package in the same way. Yeah. Anyway, Perch, what'd you make of that matchup? I don't know how much you focused on it, but it felt like that Green did a pretty good job, even after having to leave the game for a play or two.
You confused me with that, because Owe wasn't a nose tackle. He's more of an edge rusher.
No, he means, I believe he meant against teams that play a nose tackle, that Green will be more successful because of the alignment. I'm sorry. Hold on a second. I said I'm the one that's confused. Sorry. Old man yelling at clouds, mixed up about the days of the week. No, I meant Dan Moore against Owa. That was the matchup.
Moore played a good game. The thing I was most impressive with him and our boy John Leglue, the official fan club right here, the down blocks that they were doing and just caving in that left side of the line. And, late in the game when it mattered, if we need 7 or 8 yard runs on first down, it happened over and over again. They were going to that left side over and over. So those guys had a pretty good game, and Ben stayed pretty clean. And I mean, we think Ravens defense, we think dominant, one of the best in the league. They really aren't that this year. They've had a lot of injuries. They've lost some of their swagger and some of the big time players they had in the past. But you got to give credit where it's due. I still don't totally believe Dan Moore's the long-time solution at left tackle. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he kind of grows into the position, but he's, I can go back and watch some games this year where he was just getting whooped off the edge, and we'll see. Maybe if he has a good 5 or 6 games here at the end of the year in a row and stacks them together and can kind of show some growth, I'll change my opinion.
Yeah,
I think for Marvell Smith, like.
Sure. I mean, I think you could draft a tackle this year without having to worry that you can only draft a tackle who can play left tackle. In other words, I think Moore may be better suited to right tackle eventually, but I'm okay with drafting a good tackle and letting it sort itself out. Like he's good. He's shown enough to me that I can see the potential for him going forward. But yeah, if you get a chance to get like a really superior left tackle, that's great. You move more over to the right side, tell Chooks to, hit the road, and or be your backup, and you're in pretty good shape, I think. What was I going to say about that whole subject? The Kendrick Green FC, since I did bring up his name, it did feel like he played a little better. I was actually trying to look at his pad level, and it did look like he was a little, playing a little bit lower and got a little bit better leverage.
He looks a little bit healthier. And so did Trey Turner. I'm going to give all 5. That's the one thing Baltimore is beat up at corners. They have a pretty good interior. Trey Turner played well. Chuck Sokofer played well. Green played well. Frenchie played well. Moore played well. We may have the makings of a unit. And, there are 5 nice-sized lads. There isn't. There's the excuses of Moore and Green being rookies. You're 12 games in the season now. So, it's a results-driven league, and they need to continue to play well. If they play the way they played yesterday for the rest of the season, I won't be shocked if the Steelers make the playoffs.
Hey, just a quick follow-up, FC. Do you think when Dotson comes off of IR, which feels like it might be sometime soon, there's a chance that I'll give you a total hypothetical. Leglue plays great again on Thursday. Trey Turner seems to be on a bit of a down spin. I'm wondering if you think there's a chance that Dotson comes in for Turner.
Dotson, when he returns from IR, is going to be a starter. And it most likely will be for Frenchie, which will be not a great thing, but at least we now know what we have. And we can at least say we got 7 offensive linemen that we can play, because I'm not going to bang on Banner. So we got 7 guys that can play at least. Great.
Hey, Zach Banner got in there for one play where Najee Harris couldn't get a first down. It's like it's on 3rd and short. That's not a good sign for Zach.
I'd like to know what his dollars per snap is, because that guy's made a lot of money for never getting on the damn field.
Yeah.
Right.
Although in fairness, I will say this, the right side of the line made room, and Najee Harris didn't divert that way. He just ran right up the backs of the interior guys who got blown up. So yeah, it's those things have to work together, right? All of those things.
Thatcher Furmy's actually played very well in the run game yesterday. They're often overlooked, underappreciated, and they've been shit at times. Furmy tries hard. He's not a big guy. I think that Furmy's probably going to put on 8 to 10 pounds of good weight, where he's going to go from being a pretty good blocker to where he could be a very good blocker. And the amount of effort I loved from both players yesterday. How about that?
Yeah, same. And I think the thing with Freiermuth is I hope he doesn't lose the quickness, because I don't think he will. Because he's got that's the thing they're utilizing a lot more now, is bringing him around, a couple of gaps, which is allowing him to lead running plays. Whereas like he wasn't really working for him to power guys straight off the line, and it wasn't even working for him necessarily to get from one side of the formation to the other, but to go from the edge to the A gap. He was doing a great job of that last night. I thought that was a notable thing that they were getting some mileage out of. So good for him. And, still maybe not going to be a guy that gets you, 5 or 6 catches for 100 yards and 3 TDs, but maybe he's a guy that gets you, 3 key catches a game and does something in the red zone every game. Like, awesome, right? No complaints. Let's spin over to the other side of the ball, Perch. Let's talk for a second about Steelers defense against Kirk Cousins. I mean, I think Kirk Cousins is a guy that is very robotic and programmed, and he very rarely goes outside the program, no matter the game situation. If the throw he's supposed to make isn't there on 4th down and 8, he'll throw it away. He's just a creature of habit that way. Can the Steelers defense use that against him as a way of, predicting his behavior and try to bait him into things?
Yeah, he does play it somewhat safe in that aspect. He throws a nice ball down the field. He's got really good accuracy. He's reasonably mobile, but he's a guy that'll see some ghosts too when you start getting at him and hit him a bit. So I think that's what teams have really gotten after him in the past, is just hit him a few times, change some coverages on the back end, confuse him, and you can turn him into some turnovers and get him rattled out of his game pretty easy. And, he's kind of the anti-Ben, where when the game's late and on the line, he's had a good career of kind of choking things away. So knowing the Steelers, we're probably going to get a chance to see that in the fourth quarter, because we all know the game's going to be a 1-score game.
Undoubtedly true. FC, one thing I'll say about this game is it does appear that the Steelers at least attempted to run a different game plan out there on defense against Lamar Jackson. And it seems like maybe they should think about trying to do a more customized game plan for everybody. You're not going to do that on a short week against Kirk Cousins, but do you suspect the defense will look different than last week's game against Lamar Jackson?
I do. I think that they'll probably wouldn't be the best examples, but probably have similar type game plans that you had for Joe Burrow or for Herbert from the Chargers. I'm not saying that Kirk Cousins is pretty mobile, maybe not as mobile as Herbert, probably a little bit as mobile as Burrow is with coming off the ACL. I think, Adams made a difference because teams just couldn't get away with doubling Cam Hayward, doubling TJ Watt, or chipping TJ Watt, because Montavious Adams pushed the pocket enough that Chris Wormley ate. He can only double so many guys. So if Adams continues to dominate the interior and push the pocket the way he did, the benefactor is going to be Wormley. It's going to be Highsmith, and those guys are. It's a team game. My concern's going to continue to be Bush, Schobert, and Evans. The corners, they're going to make some plays. They're going to get beat. I mean, Jefferson's a great wide receiver. But you can't have the mental mistakes. You can't let Conklin, the Vikings tight end, have a big day. It just can't happen. You can't let Madison, become a major factor in the passing game, which is possible.
Yeah, not impossible to believe that Madison would be the guy to worry about after that, performance against the Ravens, where they made, Murray and, slow guys look like they like running backs couldn't be caught. They look like Adrian Peterson rookie season there against the Steelers in coverage. I don't know, Perch, this, it just feels like a game where you break the rules, you break your tendencies, you self-scout, and you say, this is what Kirk Cousins and the Vikings think we're going to do, and we're going to use it against them. Like, that's the point I was trying to make. Too much to ask for a short week?
Yeah, and the Steelers are pretty rigid, and they are who they are, and they're going to do their thing. It's going to be tough to turn around in a short week to, put some massive new wrinkle into the defense.
massive new wrinkle. Yeah, like one or two new things. Not necessarily. It's not like a Bill Belichick, bye-week game plan or anything. But yeah, all right. Anything else? In particular to try to add about that? You think the Vikings will try to run it still with Madison? Like that will be? They've seen the Steelers on tape.
They have to.
Yeah.
If they can't run the ball against the Steelers, their offense is going to be stuck in mud. They're going to have to be able to run the football.
Yeah, I don't know. Now that Spillane is back, Perch, do you think there's a chance that we'll see him playing in more sort of run-friendly situations than we've been seeing Bush recently, or do you think they'll stick with Bush?
I don't know if that was for me, but yeah, I think that they're going to stick with Bush as much as they can. But I think the leash on him is going to get a lot quicker. If he's struggling and making a few bad mistakes, he's definitely going to get yanked like he was the last game before Spillane went in for 2 or 3 plays and hurt himself.
Yeah, not good. Not a good look. Not good luck. One thing, Buddy Johnson out there making special teams tackles. Usually the guys that make plays on special teams, Tyler Matakevich might have been a little bit of an exception, but it feels like the guys who are down there making plays on special teams are usually guys who would get opportunities to do something. So maybe after the bye week. So we will see. And I guess we will also see your predictions for this week's game in just a minute. But now it's time for our exciting, illustrious pick segment brought to us by
every former referee that's in the booth can go fuck themselves. Chris Collinsworth, you're terrible. And we'll get to a real plug, which would be Jeremy's show that's on Saturday or Sunday mornings. No, that's as much as I know.
It airs on Sunday mornings, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, on 8:30 a.m. Los Angeles. It's called The Extra Point. Jeremy Kohlman, who may be listening at work right now because that's usually happens during the day. But yeah, definitely a plug to him. How about a plug for the officiating crew in the Steelers-Ravens game, who made some mystifying decisions, including letting a wide receiver who had completely given up on the play get clocked into the next week on the sideline with no call. Didn't call pass interference on a play where the receiver made a catch, and then the catch was overturned. So there was neither interference nor a catch on a play that appeared to have both. And then called interference on a guy who did something not as bad as the interference that wasn't called. Like, how do we figure out what officials are doing? Perch, the targeting rule, as I know your favorite thing to fly, but it does seem like the last couple of weeks, the officiating has been even more messed up than usual. Can you explain?
Just general incompetence. I don't think it's mostly willful, but that one, 3 or 4 in a row in that first half of that game went against the Steelers, and it was just maddening. And then I very rarely watch any of the talking heads on TV. This morning I had a couple free minutes, and I had on the show. I don't even know what show it was. I had Mike Greenberg and Ryan Clark and those guys, and they decided to bring up the awful call from the Steelers game. And they talked about how awful the pass interference call was when Deontay Johnson got grabbed and pulled, and the Ravens player picked it off, and that clearly should have been an interception. And so I remembered why I don't watch those shows, and I quickly turned it off, and that was the end of it. But everybody's got their own perspective. To me, the Steelers got hosed on 3 or 4 calls. Like I said, I couldn't even believe that they challenged that catch to Ray. When it was clear, he caught the ball, he controlled the ball, his arm was under the ball. Obviously, due to gravity, when you fall to the ground, it's going to hit the ground, but it was completely controlled and never moved. I don't know if they changed the rule again, or it's stupid. It was clearly a catch to anybody who saw it.
I don't think it was a good call, but I will say this. I predicted they would overturn it because after the whole process hit the ground, rolled over, Humphrey's arm brushed against his arm, against the Ray's arm, and the ball moved on top of Ray McLeod, like not on the ground, but on top of. So there you have it. At the end of the play, the ball moved a little bit. And I just feel like that's the kind of thing that they love to call an incompletion, whether it is or not. Unless there's a fumble and you return it for a touchdown, in which case, it's an incompletion. Okay, enough about officiating. We could just have a segment called NFL, college and NFL officiating. We hated this week. Could do a whole show, its own podcast. Let's talk a little bit about this weekend's upcoming games. I'm going to first of all start with a question. FC, do you think if the Steelers win in Minnesota and go to 7-5-1, what seed do you predict that they'll be in when the weekend ends?
7.
I think they might even be in 5 or 6, but that's depends what happens tonight. I think with Buffalo. But Perch, how about you? Where do you think they're going to be?
8.
Still, okay.
There is such a massive log jam there, and you got some hot teams like Indianapolis coming on, and I mean, you look at it; they cannot afford to lose more than one game the rest of the year to have any chance at all of making the playoffs. And you look who they've got a game at Kansas City in there. Tennessee, I think, is beatable. I think that the Vikings are beatable. They've already beaten the Ravens and Browns. They certainly could beat them both again. But they've got to just be perfect the rest of the year to have any chance to make the playoffs.
I'll tell you what, I'm just having sort of like buzzed through quickly, picking the games each week. There's a possibility that Kansas City is the number 1 seed, but I think there's a bigger possibility that Kansas City is out of the playoffs. You look at what their remaining games are. Baltimore and Kansas City are in some serious trouble with the way their schedules are playing out. So it's like they're going to
be the 1 seed. They're going to be the 1 seed. Put it down on the podcast. See me in 5 weeks.
See you.
New England will be the 1 seed. Put it down.
Who will it be? Who did you pick, Dom?
New England.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are the two.
I think it's going to be New England.
Those are the two best bets, but I wouldn't roll the Chargers out based on their schedule. I mean, because it's not who's best at this point. It's such a logjam. The distance between like the 10 seed and the 1 seed is negligible. So I feel like if okay, here's the thing we didn't talk about. Baltimore. Let's start with that game. Baltimore and Cleveland. Marlon Humphrey lost for the season apparently with they're calling it a pectoral injury. I don't know my anatomy that well, but I think it's biceps tendon where it attaches to the pec. Does that make sense, FC? You would know.
Pectoralis major to the minor, so it's connected with the bicep. So,
whatever the injury is, if it costs him the rest of the season, they don't really have a good cornerback situation there at all. And I'm wondering if they might lose a couple of games we don't expect them to lose. As both more injuries catch up to them this time on defense, and also the reversion to the mean a little bit of these, they've been getting by on winning some questionably close game victories. So let's start with this. Cleveland and Baltimore. In Cleveland, it's basically a back-to-back Baltimore game for Cleveland Perch. A weird situation, and Baltimore now coming with this loss of Marlon Humphrey. How do you see it?
If Cleveland can't win that game, when they've had the same opponent 2 weeks in a row with a bye week in between to kind of prepare for it, and Baltimore's secondary is decimated, they need to just hang up the season and go back to the drawing board. What's the line on that game? I haven't
right now. I have Cleveland is a favorite by 2.5 points. Yeah.
Cleveland. Oh man. I just don't think either of those teams are that damn. I think the Steelers are as good as, and the Steelers are just a mess this year. They're as good as either of those teams, and they could beat them both. Baltimore just has a way of pulling out games they have no business winning. I think the Ravens find a way to win it by a field goal late. That's just how it goes. Give me the Ravens 23-20.
How about UFC?
The Ravens 24-21. Agree with Perch completely.
I'm going to take the Browns. I think not because anything except for, that it just gets a little bit easier to throw it against them. And I think the Browns can already run it against them. So, it might be more of a high scoring affair. Let's call it 31-27 Browns. But, I don't know. It feels like the Ravens offense is really struggling, and the Browns just maybe have a manpower advantage right now in this game, just injury-wise and coming off the bye. So that's my take on that. How about, let's see if we can find something else more interesting. How about, is there any chance San Francisco at Cincinnati? Cincinnati's an impossible team to pick. I don't even know why I want to put them on the pick segment, because pretty much, you could have picked them to win or lose every week, and they're 7-5. So they're better than, average, I guess you could call it. This game against San Francisco is not playing particularly well. Cincinnati, in their last 4 games, if I'm not mistaken, has gotten blown out or blown somebody out every week. So which week is it, FC? I'll start with you.
I didn't get to obviously see the San Francisco-Seattle game yesterday, but I have a good friend of mine who's a San Francisco fan, and he basically, what he said is San Francisco quit in the second half. I'll take the Bengals. San Francisco, I don't know what to think about them. They have injuries. One week they look like world beaters. The next week they look terrible. Same thing could be said to the Bengals, but I'll take Burrow and Chase. Bengals. Hope Mixon doesn't fumble.
Do we think Burrow is going to play in this game?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. Perch, how about you?
Yeah, the Bengals, outside of the 3 games that they had against the Steelers and Ravens where they looked outstanding, they've been kind of shaky. I think they're pretty talented, though. The 49ers, Deebo Samuel's really the straw that serves the drink there. And with him out, they just don't quite have the same explosiveness with the offense. Games in Cincy, little Escalooser be in effect this week. I'm going to say no. I'm going to go Bengals 26-23 to win a close one.
Is Trey Lance still? Is he injured or is he just sitting behind Jimmy G?
I think he's sitting.
What's that?
No, he just sucked.
Yeah. Well, they both suck. I mean, they might go to Trey Lance.
Oh man!
I'll tell you this.
I don't think I've seen as poor of a quarterback start in 20 years than I've seen with Trey Lance.
No, it was not good. But Jimmy G, they were in the 2-minute drill running the football because they didn't trust him to throw it down, in the red zone. Very, very shaky situation there for Jimmy G. I guess I look at it this way, setting aside the quarterback play and, what they have on offense for skill players. I like San Francisco's defensive line against Cincinnati to get things done. Steelers were not able to capitalize on that in either meeting, partially because, one game TJ Watt was barely healthy to play. Or did he miss? No, he barely healthy to play. And Hayward was playing nose tackle. And then the first game, Watt didn't play. So I think you put that San Francisco defensive line against the offensive line for Cincinnati, and I think you might exploit some holes in that. So I like San Francisco to win a close game that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like really on paper, I'd pick Cincinnati in a heartbeat. Maybe I'd see the lines makers have it as Cincinnati as a 1-point favorite. That worries me. like what do people understand about this game that I don't understand? Maybe it's the thing Perch mentioned that when they don't play Pittsburgh or Baltimore, they don't look very good. How about Buffalo at Tampa Bay? We don't know what Buffalo, as we're recording this, it's during the day on Monday, so we don't know what Buffalo is going to do tonight against New England. But this feels like a game that for not only the Steelers, but the contenders in the playoff race in the AFC really are going to be rooting for Tampa Bay to do its usual destruction job. I'll start with you, Perch, and I might add a part B to this question. Do you think Tampa Bay is going to lose again the rest of the season?
They may rest some folks the last week of the year if they have the 1 seed locked up. But the NFC too, all the division leaders are like 8-4. That's going to come down. I was looking at that yesterday too. The Packers scheduled down the back half of the year. The Cardinals and the Bucks, they all look like they're going to lose one more game. And there may be some massive log jam coming down to a tiebreaker with a bunch of teams that are, 12-5 or whatever that math works out to. So, yeah, they could certainly lose another one. They've all got 2 or 3 tough games. You figure if they get knocked off once, but you can say the same thing about Green Bay and the Cardinals too.
Yeah, but what do you think about this Buffalo Tampa Bay game?
Well, Buffalo is going to be high and mighty after knocking off the Patriots, and then they're going to come back down to earth next week. So I got Buffalo wins tonight, loses next week, loses by a touchdown next week.
How about you, FC?
Where's the game at?
In Tampa Bay. Or in Tampa, I guess I should say.
I'll take the Bucs to win and cover.
Yeah, I kind of think so too. Especially the Bills, you're going to be coming off an emotional win at home, maybe against New England. Feels like, then you go to Tampa Bay, it just gets harder than playing Tom's old team. And I think just when they have Gronkowski in the lineup, things are different. The other guys come and go, but like when you have Gronkowski for Brady, I feel like that makes them extra tough. Let's talk about one NFC game. That'd be your Monday night game next week. That's the Rams at Arizona. Speaking of leaders, right now Arizona's the number 1 seed in the NFC Perch. They're 10-2, and the Rams are 8-4. When they've been bad, they've looked really bad. Earlier in the season, they looked unbeatable. Kyler Murray back now. What do you see in this one, Dom?
I don't think Boyd Blunder McVay has beat Cliff Kingsbury yet. Everything is screaming, take the Rams, take the Rams, take the Rams. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals. I think they're going to be a little bit healthier than the Rams. The injury to Henderson looks like it might be, instead of a 1-game injury, it might be a 3 or 4 game injury, which will be huge because Cooper Kupp is a very good player. Odell Beckham is not, and Van Jefferson's not developing the way they would hope. Tyler Higbee isn't turning out to be the weapon that they hoped that he would be. And the Rams' offensive line has gone old real fast. So I'm going to take the Cardinals.
How about you, Perch?
I completely agree. I mean, just historically, the Cards have even when the Cards were kind of mediocre, they would beat the Rams when the Rams were good, and they kind of got their number. The Cards are getting healthy again. It's a big game. They need it to close out the division and keep a hold of that 1 seed. I think the Cards win by 8 points. I'm going to go 30-22. Cards win.
No, I like the Cardinals as well in this game. I'm not sure about the rest of the season. They've got a couple of tough games coming up, but yeah, this will keep them in the number 1 seed. I think I guess I'll say if the Rams don't win this game, they're in serious danger of either not getting a playoff spot or crawling into the playoffs in a position where they not a position of strength.
Look at the 7th seed for the NFC. I mean, it's teams that are barely 500 or not even 500 competing for it. So it's not like the AFC. They've got like 6 teams locked in, and then like Washington or somebody's going to sneak into the 7th. The Rams are going to make it in, but they'll probably be a 6th seed. Yeah,
there's still a long way to go, man. They still have 5 games left. So, it's sort of like at 8-4. If they go to 8-5, they're in danger of getting, ending up with 9 wins or maybe 10 wins. Yeah, you're right. They're probably not going to miss the playoffs, but I also don't think they're going to be in a very good situation when they get there. They got a couple of, if I'm not mistaken, they have a couple of cold weather games, which is not really going to suit them super well with their dome quarterback and the way that they like to play on offense. Anyway, that's my last thought on that. Gentlemen, thank you for the picks. Now we go to our 5-star matchup. This is the one where we talk about this week's game with your Pittsburgh Steelers. Last week, not so optimistic on the show. This week, maybe feeling a little better about the team. They've sucked us back in. I'll start with you, Perch. Tell me about Steelers at the Minnesota Vikings on Thursday Night Football, which we love Thursday Night Football. Not really. What do you think happens in this game?
Well, I always kind of go back to the law of averages, and over the course of a season, every team's going to have a big win. They're going to have a big points explosion, and the Steelers really haven't quite had that yet, I guess, unless you count the Chargers game where they put up a bunch. But I just don't have a lot of faith in Minnesota's defense, and they're pretty damn injured. I think that, if you look at Ben's last 7 games, if you throw out that Cincinnati game, he's got, 11 touchdowns, no picks, and a QB rating of 105. One of the greatest dome quarterbacks of all time. He's actually 3rd all time quarterback rating in a dome with 105 quarterback rating, behind only Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady. So he looked good when he's had a chance lately. He looks healthy, healthiest we've seen him late in the season in a long time. And I think that Minnesota defense doesn't have a whole lot for him. So I think the Steelers are going to go in a little bit of an offensive explosion and hold on to win late. I'm going to go 26-24. Steelers win on a missed 50-yard field goal by the Vikings as time expires.
Completely believable on both counts. FC, how about you?
I have the Steelers 31-26. I think the offense will be hampered by Matt Canada early in the game. They're going to struggle with Jordan Jefferson, and unfortunately, I think they may end up struggling with Conklin, the Vikings tight end, who is somewhat underrated. At the end of the day, I just don't think the Vikings have enough to keep up, and I expect that this might be a big Chase Claypool game.
Interesting. I do think it'll be more of a struggle than we made it sound maybe in talking about this matchup because, I don't trust the Steelers' willingness to go in there gangbusters and try to run out to a big lead, especially on the road on a short week. That just seems very unlikely to me. At home, can they blitz somebody and get them down by 2 or 3 scores? Yes. Yeah, playing well with the defense that's healthy. But I do think I think FC really nailed it. I think it's those matchups are a bit concerning. So they'll in all likelihood they will play it safe and let those guys get some catches, but try not to let them make big plays. But the result of that is that Minnesota will probably be able to move the ball a little bit. So won't surprise me if it's a very close game. Maybe like the Steelers to win, but it could be very close. I mean, it could be 27-24, something like that. I don't think it's a super low scoring, but I don't think it's going to be a quote unquote Steelers blowout even of a 5-point victory. I feel like if they win, it's going to be very, very close. Last words, I'll go to you, Dom.
When you're sitting there listening to Joe Buck and Troy Aikman on Thursday Night Football, I want you to do me a favor and go and watch a season of, I shouldn't even do this, but Brockmire on IFC to see a completely different side of Joe Buck. After you get by that, go to the internet and I want you to look up Skip Bayless rumor about Troy Aikman. You will be shocked. That's why the two of them do not talk to this day.
All right. Perch.
I never knew that Skip Bayless was the one who started that rumor, but maybe I did back in the day and forgot. But nothing too pressing this week. I just I'll throw a wish of good luck to all the WPIL teams this week in the Pennsylvania State football finals. It's Hershey week, so good luck to the local Western Pennsylvania teams.
Nice. For my last word, Perch, I just wanted to add, you stole my thunder a little bit about the Ben in the dome. The thing about that stat is it doesn't include either, mostly enclosed or domes where they opened up the roof because the weather is so perfect. When you put in all of those games, I think he actually has the best passer rating in the history of the NFL in a dome or controlled situation. So kudos to Ben. I expect that his last couple of games in a dome, by the way, he had the Chargers game with 3 touchdowns, 103.7 rating. The Dallas game from last year, 113 passer rating, 300 yards. Just going back in time, it seems like every time he plays in a dome in recent years, he's really been terrific. At Indianapolis had a big game, et cetera, et cetera. So at any rate, look for Ben at least to put up some numbers if they let him throw the ball more than 3 times, including 3 throws short of the sticks, in the first half. Anyway, gentlemen, let's talk next week after we've had a break, a mini bye, and after a Steelers victory that sort of keeps them in the hunt, because that makes it a little more interesting. Gentlemen, also Perch, Dom, FC, and everyone at SteelPerch.com, and Jeremy Kohlman, who couldn't be with us today. Thanks to all you guys. Thanks to everybody that listens. Hit us with a like or a review. Tell us you like the show, or just tune in and listen quietly without telling anybody. It's fine. But in the meantime, thanks for listening, and thanks to all of you. I'm Wil Masisak, also known as Bradshaw to Ben, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter, saying, go get them, Steelers.
Go Steelers. Here we go.
There we go.
Steeler Fury.